Hey everyone, it's Pastor Dave. How are you doing? Today we're going to talk about forgiveness. But of course, as promised, I do have to show my certificate of ordination. Okay, see, I'm a pastor. Like I've always said, I spent $32 to become a pastor. And I don't even believe in God. At least the God of Abraham. I don't believe. Oh, blaspheme. He's going to hell. Yeah. I don't particularly care about the Christian emphasis about the afterlife, because there's so much you can do in this life. And some of the Christian values that were passed on to us could actually make a difference on earth. And one of those things is forgiveness. Without forgiveness, we really can't move forward. And in the case of Jesus, the idea of forgiving even your enemies, this is extreme forgiveness. This is a kind of intense forgiveness. I know Buddha talks about it, and even Muhammad to some extent. But Jesus definitely made it a centerpiece of his beliefs, his philosophy. And along with that comes the idea of non-judgment. Because you really can't forgive if you really are going to continue to stay in a state of judgment. If you're going to be judging others for being human or being flawed or being sinners or being whatever it is that you decide human beings, and you like the idea of condemning them, then you're really not living a life of a Christian, and you're definitely not living a life of forgiveness. Now, I understand that Jesus really made it easy. His lesson on judgment was pretty clear. And the idea is that even if you think of sin, you're sinning. So that you cannot escape this notion that somehow you're better than anyone else. So Jesus really made it impossible to avoid sin. Impossible. I don't agree with it, but I get his point. He makes this statement, he says, okay, it is impossible to live a life without sin. I don't like sin, I think it's a wasted concept, but nonetheless, it works in this case. And again, I only embrace some of the Christian values that I can see in a secular context. And forgiveness is one of them. Non-judgment is also one. But I'm not really going to go into the whole thought crime that every thought of, if you lust about another person, that you're committing that act. If you think about adultery, then you're committing adultery. If you think about murder, then you're committing murder. I'm not sure if that's what he really means, but I get his point. That the point was that you cannot go through life without sin. And of course, he makes I'm not sure Jesus actually made the leap, but those that have wrote about him, that the stuff that was written about him, and they of course they've added all of these qualities, the resurrection, Jesus is God, all of these qualities that make it impossible to accept Christianity as a I don't want to say viable, that's not the right word. But it's really easy to see that when you start getting into this supernatural stuff and you've really stepped away from reality, and all that other garbage is just for the purposes of an afterlife. Jesus is going to come and save us, but, the idea that he's going to return as the Messiah which even Jesus thought he was. And if the story is even close to true, he did come back. He came back like 3 days later. And hey, I think we're done. I think the second coming happened, and that's right. None of this end of days talk needs to go on. But whatever. I digress. So, because it's impossible to sin, and Jesus set himself up as being your only path to the afterlife, to a kingdom of heaven where you live eternally in whatever heavenly bliss that might look like, fine. But in that sense, I have no use for that. Because the idea of forgiveness on earth is far more powerful, and we could actually bring peace on earth through extreme forgiveness. With the idea that, okay, we're all flawed. The idea is that we think we can get the best out of people if we really can forgive and can allow them to perhaps atone or at least acknowledge their criminal activities. We'll just keep it in the secular text, and that will do best. Now, let's say somebody kills 3 people. No real reason, whatever, enraged about something, he kills them. If you're going to ever try to exercise the notion of forgiveness, at least on a personal level, especially if this person harmed your family, then yes, there's going to be that personal forgiveness. But then there should also be the sort of societal forgiveness. The idea that it's possible, maybe, that we can reform this guy. Now, of course, everybody will dismiss that. No, he's a killer. He should be put to death. I don't think so. I think one of the Christian values would be that, no, you should not want to kill somebody. And I understand. Charles Manson's a good example. Most heinous type of criminal mind there is. And you ask yourself, well, what's the point of trying to save this guy? Well, I think it's worth it, because if we can actually get somebody with that kind of mind, and we can use our psychological and psychiatric knowledge, biological knowledge, whatever we have, to try to understand why someone would commit such horrible acts, then we might actually advance our understanding of the human mind, the human brain, that kind of thing. Why do we commit crimes? So it might be worth forgiving in the sense that says we have to keep you out of society. We have to keep you behind bars because so that we can give you a chance to try to reform yourself. So you offer education, you offer job training, that's okay. You try to give them a sense of purpose, all good stuff. Maintain counseling, whatever you can do. And hopefully we're committed to that kind of idea. So it's probably not valuable to the society to just kill people, because we're not really going to learn anything. We're never going to really advance. I don't know what it will mean. I know it's going to be we have to put the money in. We have to put the effort to try to, help this person. And I know that sounds like, ugh. But if you're a Christian, the notion of this kind of forgiveness should not really be that upsetting. I know a lot of Christians love the death penalty, but it's like, why? It seems to be a contradiction in your philosophy. So the idea that you cannot even do, even in a general societal sense, the idea of extreme forgiveness or, societal forgiveness, that it might be worth trying to help somebody and help ourselves understand the human mind through at least the opportunity to reform. So prison reform is important. And we can give all the things we know. We know what it means to be a productive human being. We do. And we do know how important it is for you to feel good about yourself. And you don't have to condemn them, and you don't have to threaten them with hell, and you certainly don't have to put them to death. And I understand. I'm not sure how I would feel personally. I'm sure I'd be terribly upset whether my idea of forgiveness would actually be useful, or if it would be possible if I could. I don't know. I mean, and that's why it's better that we have a general sense of forgiveness in the society, because when you are personally involved and you are so hurt and you are so affected by it, then you're not going to, possibly not going to, be your best self about it. So that's why we have to leave it up to our laws, our system of justice. So death penalty is a useless thing. It's useless. It's laziness, first of all, and it's cruel. There's no need. We don't have to do that. I understand there are a certain level of crimes that are just outrageous, and it seems like these people are irredeemable, and there's just no way they're going to reform in any way. But I think that's a judgment that you should hold off on. But we should be very active in trying to understand this criminal mind that would do such horrible acts. So I think we do need forgiveness as part of our justice system, a societal forgiveness with the idea that we can at least give the opportunity for somebody to redeem themselves. And in so doing, that's going to be very good. That's going to be a very good thing. So in a sense, I'm sort of, borrowing this concept, not that it was an original concept with Christ, but in the case of this extreme forgiveness, Jesus would want you to not kill other people and to try to give them the benefit of the doubt. And we want to take that a step further through secular means and, various sciences. We can try to understand and try to help somebody, reform or redeem themselves. So it is worth doing. So that's why I embrace that value that Christ was trying to share. Now the actual, we'll call them mechanics, I guess, for lack of a better word. The actual mechanics of forgiveness really requires two parties, right? One who was wronged and the one who did the wrong. So the one who is willing, now it would be nice if the one that did the wrong could really come to a place of repentance or atonement or, accepting responsibility and really feeling bad and regretting that person committed, that he or she committed this crime. That if this person did something wrong and they admit it, and then the other person can actually embrace the sincerity of their need for forgiveness, and then you can find it in yourself to forgive that person, well, then the cycle of forgiveness is complete. Because there's lots of times, let's say you didn't get along with a family member and that family member died, and they never admitted or acknowledged that that they did you wrong, that they did something to you that they should not have done. They stole money, they killed somebody, they did something and it seemed to you unforgivable. And yet you can still forgive, but without their coming to terms with what they did wrong and really regretting and wanting your forgiveness, well, then you're left with just half of the cycle of forgiveness. So you pour out your forgiveness, and I guess the best you can do is just come to acceptance. that maybe, given enough time, had this person been in a position to forgive or to want forgiveness, that you would have completed that cycle. So you end up just being in a state of acceptance. And there's a kind of hope that maybe something could have been done, but not to blame yourself. And then this is where you forgive yourself. If you do think you did something wrong, then you have to forgive yourself. You have to want the forgiveness, and then you have to then be granting yourself the forgiveness. And that's how you can complete the cycle. Otherwise, if it is really directed at somebody else, the best you can do is just have acceptance. I mean, like, you can think about Hitler. Yeah, evil man, horrible, horrible acts. Nothing personally happened to you. Maybe he did. Maybe you had relatives who were in the Holocaust and they were gassed. Maybe you do have some horrible, horrible connection to Nazism and Hitler's insistence on killing every Jew. I mean, that's just, maybe you do have that. So then you got to say, well, all right, had we captured Adolf Hitler, had we jailed him, maybe we could have, maybe not, I understand. We really don't know enough about the criminal mind, and we don't know really how to help. We could sedate the guy and we can do all this, but maybe had he come to some kind of, regret, sense of regret, if he really did want to atone for his evil, that we could have done that. Well, we can't do that. He killed himself. It's the end of the story. Because he didn't want to get caught, and he knows why. I'm sure he knows what people would have done. Because, I don't know. When they are, when somebody tries to kill you, you do try to defend yourself and may end up killing somebody. So it's not like you are not capable of doing these kind of horrible acts. But hopefully, there is a distinction, at least I can make the distinction. I think most secular humanists can make the distinction that, in that case, if it's clearly, him or you or whatever, that person against you, that maybe you do just accept murder. And if you can't accept it, let's say you did kill somebody, and it just makes you feel horrible, which, I'd understand that. You don't really want to kill somebody, and you might want to justify it intellectually, but emotionally, maybe you can't come to terms with it. And this is where the forgiveness comes in. And just say, okay, this happened. I acknowledge that it happened. I don't know why it happened, but I acknowledge it. I regret that it happened. And then you can forgive yourself and accept the forgiveness within yourself so that you complete the cycle. So forgiving yourself is definitely the same kind of mechanism as it would be to forgive somebody else. It takes two parties. In this case, you as the forgiver and you as the one who needs to be forgiven. So even though you're just one being, you have two aspects of yourself. No matter what you do, if you regret doing something and you're the only one that can forgive yourself for doing that, and if it does involve another person, well, then that's another layer of forgiveness. Now that's more of an external forgiveness. So there's like the internal forgiveness that you give yourself, and then there's the external forgiveness that you at least are ready to give to others. And if that person cannot accept your forgiveness because, well, one, they don't think they did anything wrong or whatever, or they die, but you should still try to at least make forgiveness available, even if the person's no longer there. And then that just becomes a state of acceptance. So you have to accept. Okay. And so that you can let go of those bad feelings, whatever it is. So then we have the idea of general forgiveness, societal forgiveness, with the idea that we want to give people the opportunity to accept forgiveness. And that's why we need some kind of justice reform that could potentially lead to that kind of, and it really can be the basis of prison reform. That we don't just jail people and forget about them. Says, okay, good, they're out of the way. I don't want them ever to come out. No, you want to try to engage and come to an understanding, and the person becomes important because then they become part of the process of understanding why somebody does what they do. I mean, I think we know, but, these are just guesses. Oh, yeah, jealousy and rage and fear and hatred. Those are just labels giving you some sort of ability to talk about it, but really coming to an understanding and really trying to understand the process of moving from acknowledgement to a desire for forgiveness and to feel better about themselves, and hopefully they can help others, do whatever they can to be a very functional member of society, to be a blessing, to be helpful. So if their own recovery can help enlighten and help others recover from their criminal activity, and coming to terms with that and really embracing the need to be forgiven, then we have a pretty good system. It won't work 100% of the time, for sure. But we should have that motivation to do that. So a Christian who embraces the idea of forgiveness should not want the death penalty. And they should want prison reform that allows a person to come to a place of needing to be forgiven. Because that will be helpful to all of us. If somebody is ready to embrace forgiveness, and we can be there as a society, and if there's a personal interaction, then personally to forgive this person, that's all beautiful. That's all going to be a wonderful thing. Okay, I kind of got too serious today, but anyway, that's my lesson on forgiveness, both general and specific, both internal and external ideas of forgiveness. If you want to chat, have any comments, please write below. I thank you for your time. Okay, take care.